Hi, this is Rich here again, and we're working on this bearing replacement for the front load LG washing machines. I showed the removal of the bearings, and now I'm going to do the bearing install. Preparation is always going to work in your favor, so make sure you prepare yourself. The best thing to do for this bearing is to install, buy the right bearings, buy a good quality bearing, and make sure everything is clean and prepped and ready to go. The next thing you want to do is to take your bearings and put them in the freezer, or at least put them in the freezer. I would leave them in there overnight and let them just get real cold. A lot of you won't have micrometers. I did a micrometer check on them. These bearings will shrink about 2/1000ths of an inch. So it'll allow for easier installation. Make sure you have something that you can tap these bearings in with. It will be a block of wood. You can, don't hit the bearing directly with the hammer. You can use the old bearing to put on top of it. The bearing should just fall in with a little bit of a tap once you have them cold. But if not, be prepared to tap them in and have something good and solid to prepare this with. Now I've made some tools. I'm prepared down here. You can see I have my tub resting on a piece of carpet, something firm that it's going to be, so when I put that bearing in and I tap, if I have to tap it, it's going to be solid. I have these tools, a little 4-pounder. This is a piece of copper. You're not going to have these tools. This is going to be my drive if I have to tap it in. You are probably not going to have anything like this. So I'm not looking that I'm going to have to need this, but they're there if I do have to use them. Block of wood is also a good thing to have, and I'll get a piece of wood just to show you what to use. So you can use a block of wood. This is just a 2x4. This is the old bearing that came out. You can just hold that on top of your bearing and tap it down in there if you have to. You can place the old bearing on top of the new bearing if you don't want to tap against the new bearing, but this block of wood is going to prevent anything from happening even to the new bearing. So as long as you have a nice piece of wood that you can tap on, you're not going to be tapping that hard. You shouldn't have to tap that hard. So let's see how this is going to work. So what I did is I used, I have a little oil that I put on here, and I just put a light coating of oil in the bore. And I use this, and I just put a light little coating of oil in the bore so that it has something that will help it if it should happen to get stuck in there. And then what we're going to do is, like I said, you're going to be prepared. I do this next to the refrigerator because when those bearings come out, they're nice and cold. If you have to run a long ways with them, they're going to warm up on the way. So if you can, try to do it next to your refrigerator. It's going to make it a lot easier. So here we go. We're going to try this and see how it works. Here's our bearing. We'll take our bearing, bring it in. And it's not going to go in, so. Going in very easily, so let's see what we got going on here. It works so well, is it? We're gonna go here. We're gonna use our old bearing here. We're gonna put it on here. We're gonna put this on here. This at all. There it goes. Okay. It was in a little crooked, so we had to straighten it out. There it goes. It's going down in there now. There. You hear how solid that is. So what happened on that particular bearing was the bearing was cocked crooked a little bit, but I had to straighten it out. And I had this piece of copper here so I could tap that edge of the bearing to straighten it out. Once it was straightened out, it went in there fairly easy. So on the first bearing I installed, I used some engineered tools that I had to my availability. To whereas the second bearing I install, I'm just going to use the old bearing, a wood block, and a 4-pound hammer. Make sure again that you have a good hammer to use. You don't want to just go beating with this hammer. You have to be able to feel this bearing and make sure it's going in straight, because it will go in fairly easy. Once they're going in their bore straight, they go in easy. If they're crooked, they're not going to go in easy. So if you make sure that you've kept them in the freezer long enough. So I'm going to show you this method of installing the bearing with the wood block, the hammer, and the old bearing. So again, we're going to take and put a little bit of oil in the bore. Make sure it's in there. Just want to make sure we get a little coating in this bore so that we have that coating in there. Okay, it doesn't take very much. And then we're going to go to our freezer. Here we go. Bearing. I'll put this bearing on top. I'll put this right here. So that bearing was actually going a little bit of crooked, but once it straightened out, I just felt it drop right in the bore. Didn't take much to push that bearing in. So that shows you two methods for installing these bearings. Again, if you're having to use too much force, something's really not right, especially if you've put these bearings in the freezer. Once they're cold, like I said, they shrink about 0.02 of an inch. And that allows you the freedom to put them in without much force. Try to make them as straight as you can going in. You should be able to feel them. They kind of tell you. If it's not going in, just knock it back out and start over. But it should go in relatively easy.